Hey there, folks. It is Michael here with the CCERP podcast, E for Ecology. Hope you're doing all right and still surviving and thriving as much as you can in this COVID stuff we got to suffer. Getting outdoors, hope you're doing that. Get some vitamin D, be healthy, move in the environment. And hope you survived the cold snap a lot of people in the country had recently. But today we're here to talk. He's back, Tombrown the third. Talk more about tracking and ecology and nature and just awareness. So you say hello, Tom.
Hi, how's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
Good, super glad to be back.
Hell yeah, yeah. Glad to talk
Really,
to you.
really looking forward to this one.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So people can listen to the
One
first
thing I
one
want to. Oh, go ahead.
to learn about Tom. But what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna, bring up the, suffering through the pandemic, and I think if anything, this is a vital opportunity for us to, analyze, why these things occur. If you look at the way the natural world works, we're the only animal that is able to exempt itself from natural laws of, carrying capacity of the land, because we invent things like medicines and we can grow our own food. And, my belief is that this, pandemic in particular is a, proverbial warning shot across the bow from the earth saying, you all need to make some changes at the way you're treating nature, because in just the last few hundred years we have wrought an incredible amount of destruction upon the planet. And one of the ways nature seeks balance when an animal becomes overpopulated is disease or sickness. It's either that or starvation. And so I'm hoping that people have taken this time to think about those things, in our role in the world and our role in nature. For too long we've kind of by we I don't mean those of you listening. I mean more kind of the general populace. People seem to view themselves as at the top of this column where of approximately 8.7 million species, that because we have fancy tools and big brains, that we are somehow better than everything else. Instead of viewing life as a column with us at the top, we need to view it as a circle where all beings are interconnected by these invisible threads. And in our short-sightedness, we just go along clipping these threads, not thinking about the possible ramifications they could have far down the line. We tend not to think much past the generation we're in. Leave it for the next generation to deal with, and that mindset is what has led to all of the strife and suffering that we are going through at this point.
Yeah, we're not so exempt as some people think. I think it's one thing about the Western culture.
Nope.
I don't think some people get. It's not so monolithic as some people want to present it as. It's very kind of not the individual people, but the culture as such is very schizophrenic. You can see that in our history. There's this very Aristotelian element and a very Platonic element. If you look into Aristotle, he was more into philosophy and biology. Even Darwin, upon looking at a translation of Aristotle's biology, was amazed at the depth and power of integration that Aristotle did, for his time. of course, he didn't have some concepts. Darwin did. A lot had been learned since then about how to do science properly, about zoology and biology and geography. But I think there were two heroes Darwin had in biology, and he said they were schoolboys compared to Aristotle. Aristotle had to, when he was at the academy under Plato, teaching there, he had to try to convince these Platonists to pay attention to biology. You know, they're so into astronomy where things are allegedly perfect. And I think this is a good metaphor for some people with their technology and some philosophies. They're so into their, my kitty's talking, they're so into their alleged perfection and looking away from the world and kind of dreamy in their Ptolemaic, fake, like poorly science world. Aristotle's, hey, look at life on Earth. It's so beautiful and so much here, and there's so much complexity to it. Come on, guys, let's like focus on this. Kind of same thing. We need to, focus on that aspect of the culture, and not this other aspect that's been destructive. You know, we need to see that there are some things in the West that are pro-ecology, pro-biology. There's great people doing great work in the West as well, and not focus on the bad aspect of it, except to get rid of it. But I think that's one thing that is going on too, as you point out. There's some bad philosophy that is making some people think we're exempt from nature or evolution doesn't apply to us anymore. And as you say, nature's there. Mama Nature's saying, hey guys, I love you. Come on, don't do that. It's not right. I'm here to help you.
Well,
You're getting sick.
I think another reason.
Pardon?
I think another reason. Oh no, I was just going to say. Back to what you were saying about looking outward. It's one of the reasons why I really love. As some of one of my hobbies, other than teaching and practicing the skills that I teach, is photography, specifically macro photography, which is taking pictures of small things. And there are so many amazingly beautiful, wonderful small things that most people just walk by and never notice. And I've been using my photography as a vehicle to show people that you don't need to travel to some exotic destination thousands of miles away to find rapture in nature. It's everywhere. It's right outside your back door. I can spend hours just combing over a 6-foot patch of ground in the forest. And yeah, it's bringing it down to that smaller level, helping people notice the grandeur and the small things.
Yeah, the complexity.
And yeah.
Yeah, like
it is there.
I know years ago, I experienced something kind of like what you're saying. It fits in with that. Like, took a picture of some flower, and then I look at the picture and I pinched to zoom on my phone, and it's like, whoa, there's all these colors I didn't even see at first. Just look at the flower. There's this purple and yellow and orange or something. It's like, I didn't know it was all these colors. Like, whoa, this is so beautiful. But it's so small. It's hard to see, like when you're standing up looking down at it.
Yeah, I took a pretty common plant here in the Pacific Northwest called Foxglove. It's an extremely deadly, toxic plant. Funny enough, though, it's the root chemical digoxin, which is the chemical that'll kill you. It's actually used very widely in the pharmaceutical industry. They make a lot of drugs to regulate heart rhythm. But anyway, I was shooting some close-up shots of this foxglove flower, and at the time I didn't notice it, but when I got back and downloaded the photos, I realized that there was a very opaque crab spider inside the blossom that had captured a gnat.
Wow,
And
cool.
I did, at the time I didn't even notice it, but I actually got the photo and got it sitting there in the mouth of the flower,
Cool.
with the fly. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
put things into perspective as well.
yeah. I think I've seen the same with some of that, like some insect or really tiny wasp or something that you didn't see until, like, when you were taking the picture until afterward.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully people learn more about that perspective. We're part of nature, not above it, separate, exempt. Very important thing. I
Yep.
think we need to get. We can't, as you say, do some of this stuff without consequences.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I know some people are learning, but unfortunately, in human history, we see that there's a um, never underestimate some people's inability to learn. You know, their never
Nope.
underestimate their ability to retrench. You know, but
Yeah. It's it's funny too if you the kind of eternal question, what is the meaning of life? What is our purpose? If you truly study nature and the beings that exist there, bees are meant to pollinate flowers, to help trees and plants, further the next generation. Scavengers, clean up, things off the landscape. It, Pretty much any creature, animal, insect you study, it's pretty clear what their role is. But it only seems to be us, we're so advanced, yet nobody can seem to figure out what our purpose is. And I think part of that stems from the fact that, our species, Homo sapiens, our brains, we are still designed to live in, groups of no more than 100 people, in a close relationship with nature. And now we are, we pack ourselves in the cities. We all, carry devices in our pocket that you can instantly communicate around the world. We can access information on a scale that, 50 years ago is unheard of, but people have never felt more alone.
hmm.
If you look at the rates of, addiction and mental illness and other sicknesses, and it's just, very, very apparent to me that a lot of that stuff stems from the lack of connection to nature. We inherently crave that connection, and most people don't recognize void within them is, and they try to fill that void with everything from better job, drugs, alcohol, fancy cars. In our society, we're taught that success is, making a lot of money, having nice things. We're very goal oriented. That when you get there, that's when you're going to be happy. And then these people, they get there, and then they look around and they say, is this all there is? They realize that they were lied to, and that the real magic was in the journey to get to the goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I constantly have to reinforce with my students when I'm teaching them a skill, like friction fire, for instance. You essentially, long story short, you rub two sticks together a certain way, you generate a coal, which you then put into a tinder bundle and you blow into flames. Well, people are so focused on getting that coal and blowing that tinder bundle in the flames that their technique and form is really bad, and they're just rushing through it to try to get that, to get the prize. And when, if you take time to learn the proper technique and form, don't worry about the end result. You're going to get that much more out of it. You'll be that much better at it in the long run.
Yeah, that comes up in a lot of things. I see that in fitness too. Being a certified fitness trainer, delving
Mhm.
into it more and more. Um, a lot of lack of technique and form that cause a lot of dysfunctions in people's movement and their bodies and their biomechanics, cause a lot of
Yep.
injuries. If they pay more attention to technique and form instead of do this, do this, do this, then they'd be injured less. I mean, hell, there's
Yep.
like, I am not Mr. World Champion, greatest in the world athlete, but, and plus I
Mhm.
was like um, very uncoordinated and pathetic when I was younger. Last one picked for the kickball team in fourth grade, all that stuff. Kind of clueless, but you learn, you change, you improve. At least some of us do. More should. But um, now that I'm a certified fitness trainer, studied all this stuff, improved myself. Hell, I can do all this stuff that these like college football players cannot. And again, it's not because I'm
Yep.
Mr. Awesome, like I'm Mr. World Champion in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's because we have a culture that is producing some broken athletes. There's too many people that are broken as they are, um, when they should be
Yep.
better off. They should be doing things that I can't, because that's kind of like my status in the fitness world. But because they don't know the
Yeah.
technique, they're broken. You know, I can like
Yep.
do a bear crawl backwards up a slope. It'll trot, and they can't even do it at all. They like can't even walk. They can't even. They don't have good
Yep.
technique. They go a little bit. They got to stop. All this stuff. Or they can't do it upstairs. Um, so yeah, it's like in general, um, that technique thing needs to
Yeah.
be
I
dialed
saw
in
that a
for
lot.
fitness, for education, for tracking, for starting fires. That's just a principle that needs to be more in education and the culture. You know,
Yeah.
technique and
And
form
also,
matter.
I think failure is also a hugely important part to learning.
Amen.
We're also taught that failure is bad, when failure is our most important teacher. And if we did everything right the first time we did it, we wouldn't learn anything. And so that's why in my teaching style that I learned from my father. There are times where I will purposely set up lessons to fail, to cause people to use a little bit of critical thinking.
Cool.
If you look at, and a lot of these issues stem from our Western education system, where you sit in front of a classroom, teachers at front, students are sitting down, the student has a question, they raise their hand, teacher answers the question, and you move on. It doesn't, the modern education system does not really do much to foster like true learning. Um, yeah, there's magic in the struggle, in figuring it out, and figuring out these lessons. So yeah, I will at times, purposely leave something out, and I'll let people struggle for a little while and see if they can figure it out. And a game I play regularly with my classes is, uh, somebody will ask me a question, and just simply by asking them questions, I will get them to answer their own question. They had the information the whole time. They were just looking at things from the kind of Western education perspective. It doesn't. In our education system, as long as you're good at memorizing things and can regurgitate information on command, you could be anything. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer. Um, and it's it's frightful. Some of the online stuff I've looked at to just better increase my understanding about things. Nowadays we have access to lectures given by college professors, and some of them are just so and they're teaching with so little passion
True.
that it's
Yeah.
it's no wonder that their students aren't super excited. I think back to my traditional education. I didn't go to college. I did the whole kindergarten through 12th grade thing. And out of my, 13 years of schooling, I only had one teacher who who I would deem to be an actual educator.
Hmm.
And to me, there's a difference between a teacher and an educator. Somebody who, the particular gentleman was engaging, was thought provoking, and so many other, so many teachers aren't like that. They just, every class, they give the same lesson in the same way. If you come and take since the pandemic, I've been forced to teach a lot of single day programs because we're not allowed to do overnights. So I do a lot of, survival basics, and, you can come take 5 survival basics classes with me and no 2 will be anywhere near the same. I'll cover the same information, but I present it in very different ways because I look at my group of students as a single organism, and I teach to that, and I read the crowd, so to speak, and will adapt, to that. As opposed to just sitting there and going, here's this thing, and now we're going to move on to this next, and pay attention to this. It's necessary. We need more leaders out there. We need more true educators. Especially as we move forward from this, the uncertainty that we're in now. We need people who have all of our best interest at heart, not just their own wallet or their own pocketbook. It's pretty crazy to see how things are. We just the other night watched this movie called Dark Waters, and it's about the guy who sued DuPont over Teflon. And Teflon is a very common thing. It's in Gore-Tex rain gear, non-stick pans. And DuPont knew from the time they invented it that it caused all these cancers and illnesses, and they hid it from the public for decades. And there is not, 99% of people alive on this planet have Teflon inside their bodies. It's a forever chemical. It's called C9. It's basically 9 carbon atoms linked up, and it's in carpets, it's in our clothing, it's in our cookware, and just that it's just appalling to me that a corporation that we're supposed to trust knowingly and willingly just poisons us. It's just we need to move past that frame of mind into more of a stewardship role, whether it's on the individual level or on the corporate level or on the government level.
Then the culture in general too, education. Instead of thinking, hey, this technology is great, hey, stuff doesn't stick to my pans, hey, they're easier to clean, it should be a habit from the culture and from education to think, okay, how does this affect my biology? That's one thing that's lacking too, the bigger picture, the connection of technology to biology and evaluating it accordingly. Okay, this technology is super cool and maybe you got this convenience, but evaluate it, appraise it. How does that relate to my biology? How does that relate to my health? How does it affect the ecology that we need to live in? We got ecology is much more important to human survival than technology is. I love technology. We need it. It's a human thing. It's in our nature. It's natural. Other animals use some kind of maybe technologies too, but it can't be taken out of context or regarded as separate from everything else. It needs to be evaluated. Then we'd be much better off.
Definitely.
Twinkies.
Definitely. Yeah, there's actually.
Teflon.
Yeah, and it's funny. Speaking of Gore-Tex, Teflon on clothing, making waterproof clothing. Wool is still the best outdoor fabric there is. It's a natural fiber. It maintains its insulating capabilities even when it's wet. It's antimicrobial. It's fire resistant. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it rains all winter long. I don't wear rain gear. I wear everything I'm wearing except for my shoes is wool, and
Cool.
I'll be out in a downpour, and I'm fine because as I said, it maintains its insulating capabilities even when it's wet. Because of the lanolin, if you can get out of the rain for a little while, just your body heat will dry it out, and it's really quiet in the woods. And I've just watched people come with, to classes with fancy Gore-Tex jackets, and after 2 hours in the rain, they're soaked through and down the road to chronic hypothermia. And I'm fine.
Yeah, and that comes from a broader issue too, like not using technology right. Even houses, we need to think about using them correctly. There's some stuff that we're doing naturally, we don't think about it. Yet, when we're indoors too much, we're not in the sun, we're not getting vitamin D, our immune
Yep.
system don't work as well. We don't have good
Yep.
bone metabolism. Or if you're not outside enough, you're not conditioning yourself to deal with the range of temperatures, then you're going to suffer
Yep.
from the cold more.
Yeah. Well, it's like I tell, I call it the 72-degree life. People go from their 72-degree house to their 72-degree car to their 72-degree office, and God forbid they get too hot or too cold or wet. Those things are real. These bubbles of safety and security and comfort that we all live in, that's not real. We are incredibly adaptable animals. It's one of the reasons why we've been able to spread, far and wide across the globe. And things that one day are a discomfort, you put up with it for 2 days, surrender to it, and it won't bother you anymore. So I'm constantly telling people, if you try to fight the cold, if you try to fight nature, you will lose. You have to accept it for what it is, and you have to accept it for what it is. Allow it to pass through you. It's like that old Zen saying, "Be a hollow reed," because the more you dwell on it, it's just going to make it worse. So, you have to learn to deal with a little bit of discomfort, and then eventually, in a very short amount of time, I think I once read somewhere that it takes like a human, 3 or 4 days to adapt to a new climate, a new surroundings. We're incredibly resilient, but we so cut ourselves off from the natural world, from the cycles of the natural world, that we think we're making it easier on ourselves, but we're really not. We had a pretty bad snowstorm here a couple of weeks ago, and Portland, Oregon, they own 2 snowplows for a city that's so close to mountains. I'm amazed that they only own 2 snowplows. And the day after the storm, I decided to drive into the city in my truck to see, help a few friends whose vehicles were stuck. And I pulled over on the side of the road to help somebody whose truck was stuck. And this guy was out in shorts and sandals and socks and a zip up hoodie. And it was like 28 degrees with 40-mile-an-hour winds and 16 inches of snow. And I'm just like, man, just change your clothes a little bit better. You're, if you had actually been in a remote location stuck, you would probably not make it.
Sure.
We need to learn to listen, listen, and feel to what's going on around us, and adapt to that.
Yeah. Then we can adapt to the cold a lot more than some people think. And of course, I'm not talking about exposure is like in that situation. You're out 7 days exposed. You're in 30-degree water for a while. You're going to die. But insofar as dealing with it, we can adapt beyond the 72 thing more than we think people can. I'll put links in the show notes. Like Wim Hof is someone famous who deals with the cold, called the Iceman. He studied some ancient cultures and found out how breathing can help deal with the cold through the stress response. I think I've heard, I don't know if they've actually found it, if it's just hearsay or true. I don't remember some of the details, but I think some monks of the East are rumored or can use their breathing to actually melt snow on themselves. They can make themselves so warm.
Yeah, they'll wrap themselves in a wet sheet, and I've actually witnessed that before. Cool. It's pretty incredible. You know, our physical mind is our greatest ally and our worst enemy.
Yeah.
You know, we are what we think. You know, we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. You know, going back to the clothing thing, you know, one of my hobbies when I have spare time and I'm on the internet, I'll go and look up digitized journals of, you know, explorers and just, you know, there's a whole bunch of them out there. And a really common theme when Europeans made first contact with, you know, indigenous peoples of the Americas, one of the first things you would see in the journal was they would remark at how little clothing these people were wearing for, you know, the temperature that they were in. And, you know, that just comes from living in it and just accepting it.
Yeah, we adapt.
You know, we have to maintain that we have to maintain that core temperature, but you know, we can do that. You know, our brains are capable of much more than we give them credit for. You know, it's you know, teaching people some of those basic skills of, you know, just surrendering instead of fighting. You know, that's the first step that you got to take, because we just have a habit of making things worse for ourselves because we dwell on it. You know, making mountains out of molehills, as they say. But if you just kind of accept it and move on, you'll get over the crest that much faster.
Yeah. And if we spent more time through a longer period of time in education, in and out, learning more biology, we'd get that more, like seeing how horses adapt to the cold with their, when the seasons change through the year, fat stores, fat metabolism changes a little bit, more fat under the skin, hair gets thicker, blood vessels pull away from the skin a little bit, things like that. All these different adaptations occur, and they're fine as long as they're not wet, even when it's like -40. And then people have similar stuff going on. If you stay 72, then you're killing your ability to adapt. But if you get in the different temperatures, you're able to adapt. And you got to be willing to do it, know that it's good, know that it's healthy, and not be like some people that they destroy or kill or limit their ability to live effectively. And for other people too, when they claim things are crazy. You're in the cold, you're crazy. You're barefoot, you're crazy.
Yeah.
No, it's like a lot of people who use that crazy epithet. I think that's just something they do so they don't have to think or be aware or reason. You know, throw out the crazy label, call someone crazy, then hey, we're free from thinking. We don't have to think.
Exactly.
It's an automatic little judgment right there. We don't got to learn. Just call the other person
Yep.
crazy and we're good to go. But not rational, not logical, not ethical. Um, and a denial
Yep.
of a lot of biology.
Uh, yeah. I think if anything, any situation, any lesson we could learn about anything, we need to learn to look upon it, without expectations, take in the information, utilize what's useful, shed what isn't useful, and, move on to the next thing. But, so many people are so entrenched in their ideologies and their beliefs that, anything that doesn't align with those is immediately fake, or false or bad. And that's a dangerous thought pattern.
Yeah.
That thought pattern has led to, just destruction of nature, oppression of certain groups of people. The sooner we realize that, no matter where you're from, no matter the color of your skin, we are all one human animal. And if we could all work together, think about the amazing things that we could create and the amazing change that we could bring about. But, there are forces out there that profit from keeping us divided and keeping us from working together. And that's where the danger lies. When you are so, you stick to your guns, as they say, so much that you're willing to ignore facts, then you've just gone so far off off the deep end, so to speak. It just boggles my mind. And even if somebody, you can learn a lesson from somebody on a valuable lesson on what not to do as much as a valuable lesson on what to do or how to do it. Everyone and everything we come into contact with throughout our day has the ability to teach us something. Only when we approach life from the place of the empty cup will those lessons be available to us. But, too many of us walk around with our ideals and our belief systems that, our cup is full and we can't add anything to it. But if you, approach life without expectations, there's wonderful lessons to be learned around every corner. And it saddens me that so many people are, cut themselves off from that ever happening.
Yeah, I think we should stick to our guns on some things, and some ideals are good, like slavery is bad, racism is bad, Nazi Germany is bad, but we need to make sure we're correct about what we're saying. And those three things are clearly wrong. There's other things that shouldn't be in the same category as those that people do get carried away. But I need to look at the facts, think about what's really the case or how things integrate, connect to the rest of the world. Too much hate, for example, about coyotes and snakes, when they're very important for our ecology and the well-being of people, because both of those species control rats and mice, for example.
Yep.
And I was thinking when I was out in the woods today, I know some people that are scared of snakes, and I was thinking, I don't see any snakes, but if they weren't around, then how many damn mice and rats would there be out here? And if they didn't have any predators, they wouldn't be scared and they wouldn't be hiding. They'd be out running around more. They'd reproduce more. Damn things might be biting me, coming after me. They'd be spreading disease. So I'm like, thank goodness for the snakes.
That's where the plague came from.
Truth.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I read recently that terrifies me is they're about to start uh, in certain areas releasing genetically modified mosquitoes that
Hmm.
will basically, I'm not sure the exact science behind it, but basically they releasing these, I think they're male mosquitoes that, basically it'll cause mosquitoes to go extinct.
Huh.
And obviously, the goal is to prevent malaria and other mosquito-borne illnesses, but, you know, they don't realize that things like mosquitoes are a food source for so many other species of
True.
insects, of bats. So that's what I was speaking of earlier about, us snipping threads in nature without thinking of the consequences. Yeah, land stewardship is another thing I'm really passionate about. No matter where I've lived in this country, there's always a whole host of invasive species that, I've had to deal with. And if you research why these invasive species are here, a staggering amount of them were actually brought in by, biologists at the time, thinking that they were going to bring this plant in that was going to fill this niche, when in fact, it ends up being incredibly destructive. Yeah, it's once again the short-sightedness, the not really thinking it through all the way.
Yeah.
Before you make the decision. So
Hmm.
yes, obviously things like malaria and other tick-borne illnesses are bad, but I don't think wiping out an entire species or multiple species of insect is the answer to fixing that problem.
Yeah.
Because who knows what that's going to be, what that could cause. It's yeah, it could just cause some other insect species to fill
True.
the niche, which could be more able to transmit other diseases.
Right.
Yeah, it's and even somebody like myself who's been a student of nature my entire life, I still learn something new every time I go outside. Still learn something new every time I pick up a skill I've done 100 times or 1,000 times.
Yeah.
It's like we anybody who's a practitioner of anything, strives towards the mastery level. And anybody who's a true master of something will tell you that the more they learn, the less they realize they actually know. So yeah, it's a loaded term. Being a master of something.
Yeah. In regard to the mosquitoes, um, reminds me. Don't remember the source. I think it was a book about farming. Um, some good holistic, natural farming practices instead of this modern stuff that tears up the soil, puts down a monoculture, has caused amazing soil loss and mineral degradation in the soil. But I think it was about good practices. But one thing, I think it was in there, they talk about how um, to protect the crop, they sprayed insecticide, and the destruction of the crop actually became worse
Yep.
because the insecticides kill insects. Hence, it also killed the spiders. Fewer spiders,
Yep.
fewer control mechanisms on the pest that was eating up the plant. Um, so they were better off not spraying the insecticide, so the spiders would help them control the pest that's eating the plant. If they think more wisely, more ecologically, more broadly, as you're saying, look at the cause-effect relationships, um, they'd be better off. Kind of same thing might happen with the mosquitoes. I don't like mosquitoes. I do not like being bit. Don't like the spread of disease. But yeah, what happens if we get rid of them? We need to figure that out first.
Yeah.
As some people say, the Earth is kind of like a ship we're sailing on, and you don't want to destroy the ship and be caught in the middle of the ocean without
Yeah.
anything.
It's Yeah, it's we've only got this one planet, and what's really kind of been terrifying to me lately is, we have all these wonderful technologies, and we're exposing our children to them at younger and younger ages, and that the technological realm is a lot more alluring than the natural realm. As somebody who is 99% of my teaching involves adults. I have taught kids enough over the last 20 years I've been teaching to, watch the degradation of their enjoyment of nature. When I first started teaching, you get a group of kids and every single one of them would just be totally into whatever you were talking about. And nowadays, my coworkers that teach kids, there's just, the kids can't wait to get home and get on the Xbox or the PlayStation and play Fortnite, or, run away to these virtual worlds. And I fear that, as the younger generation comes into power, they're just going to continue that cycle of going deeper and deeper into the virtual world, until we're, people are essentially just, in capsules inside a building, and they're just constantly going to be in some virtual simulation. Although there are people who theorize that we're all in a simulation right now anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, some of that is just a modern version using technology of ancient solipsism, ancient philosophy, just a different turn on the same bad philosophy. Yeah, it's pretty sad how some of them are scared of nature, scared of reality.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't be healthy if you don't know your
And that's
biology.
another thing too.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and just speaking to what you said about being afraid of nature, that is one of the reasons why I really despise all of the wilderness survival based reality TV shows out there.
Yeah.
Is that they man versus wild, naked and afraid. They always showcase humans and nature in an adversarial relationship when the opposite is meant to be true.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
And yeah. If you fear something, you're much less likely to fight for it when it's about to be destroyed. And as we move into this age, continuing into this age of cheap disposable goods, and we just need more and more resources to manufacture these things, the less people are connected to nature, the less they're going to fight for it. Until unfortunately one day it'll be too late. And it's like recently I put up a blog post on my website recently, and I as a header I used an Aldo Leopold quote. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's he basically says, I'm glad that I will not be young in a future, without wilderness.
True.
And just thinking how, like the wilderness that my father got to play in versus the wilderness I got to play in, and how different they were. And then looking forward to the next generation, there's going to be that much less. It's really, really, really sad.
Yeah,
when I first moved to the Pacific Northwest. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Good.
I was just saying when I first moved to the Pacific Northwest, fishing is another thing I really enjoy, fly fishing, and I was really excited to live in salmon and steelhead country. And then I got here and I realized that there is less than 1% of the historic numbers of salmon and steelhead returning from the ocean every year. And then, most of those are hatchery raised fish. which are dumped into rivers, and they cause their own problems. So, there are barely any and here around here, there are barely any wild, like truly wild, salmon and steelhead left. And the way they differentiate the two is when they clip the fin behind the dorsal fin of hatchery raised fish. So you can tell if you've caught a wild fish versus a hatchery raised one. And in all my time here and all the fishing I've done, I've never actually caught a wild, salmon or steelhead. They've all been fin clipped hatchery raised fish.
It's too bad. Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah,
well,
it's
go ahead. What?
Oh no, I'm just saying, but they are making some efforts. They are removing dams off a lot of the rivers, like the Klamath River in California. The dams are coming off there, but they really need to do something on the Columbia, because all those giant dams just even though they have systems for the fish to get through them, the smarter sea mammals like sea lions know that they can just hang out right at the base of the dam and have essentially a free buffet and just eat. So they're also taking out a ton of the salmon and steelhead and sturgeon and other fish like that. It's so many circles within circles and so many unforeseen consequences of things that aren't recognized until 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, when it's too late. In my opinion, they should ban, just looking at the, fisheries as a whole. I mean, I think they should ban commercial fishing for just about everything for about 10 years to let, some of these fish species return, because without that, eventually there is going to be a time where there are no more. And then, when we're not cleaning out the seas, removing them all from the ocean, we're polluting the creeks that they spawn in. We cut all the logs down, which increases the runoff, which floods their spawning beds. It's just this, they're getting hit from so many different angles. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Just as many people have pointed out that ethics and morality have not kept up with technology in our culture, just history in general. Technology is like, people are kind of too big for their britches. All this technology, but don't properly know how to use it. So also we need more, not just morality and ethics, but biology and ecological knowledge. Know how to use this wisely. Kind of ties back in with what we were saying earlier about some of the technology. It seems to me some technology is great, but some of it, as we were saying, is used more like a crutch. Technology should be something we use to live better, to survive and thrive, but too often it's chemistry or physics made up to allow us to continue a mistake, a dysfunction. We do something wrong, okay, let's do something so we can continue doing it wrong. Hence we got all this chronic disease in the United States nowadays. A lot of stuff should be prevented. People are dying from a lot of cancer and heart attacks that should not be happening. And it's not a matter of coming up with some cure for cancer. We already have it. It's being true to our nature. Just get biology, learn that.
It's just
get ecology. It'll go away.
I mean, there's just so many aspects of our as a tracker, as a student of life, I'm constantly looking at anything and everything from as many facets as possible.
Cool.
And it's,
Interesting.
anything from the war on drugs to, climate change. It's, the answers are there, but, because people are so, entrenched in the status quo, they don't want to make a change when there are, better ways of doing things. And, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of it is driven by, big business and, the profits they make off things like that. It's, I think back to a few years ago when I saw the documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car? And, I didn't realize that the first, cars were actually battery powered. And, think about how much better, battery technology would be, had we just stuck with that as opposed to going to gasoline. And the reason why, is essentially the very early, 1901, electric cars were pushed out was because oil was becoming a really incredibly profitable thing. So, didn't stand a fighting chance. Now that we're starting to adapt a lot of these technologies, making batteries for cars is incredibly destructive to the environment, and then when you have to dispose of them or recycle them, that's all also comes with its own set of consequences. I read a thing recently where it, said a Tesla produces more dangerous waste before it even leaves the assembly line than a Ford F-150 will in 10 years on the road, because making those batteries requires all these precious metals which have to be gotten from somewhere, and it's usually Western countries taking advantage of the resources of other countries, underpaying their workers, putting them in dangerous working conditions, to get these metals, and then there's electronic recycling, which is really just they, send all of our electronics that recycle to a third world country where they burn them all in a giant pit, and they send children down in there to collect all the metal after all the plastic is burned away. And it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Pretty scary stuff.
Interesting.
And it can be pretty disheartening.
True.
I'll always forever be forever optimist. I like to think that we're sometime soon we're going to reach this critical mass where either we're going to bring about a new paradigm, or we're just going to crash and burn, and it's time for the bird people to take over or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, kind of like mentioned earlier, the Western culture is kind of schizophrenic. You got these different elements. You got people doing things with a bad philosophy on the one hand and opposite on the other, and people rewilding. Some rivers being rewilded in Europe as well. And a lot of the rewilding and using nature appropriately, good farming practices stuff is coming from the United States as well. But hopefully that can get more cultural traction, get more of a dominance in the culture than some of these bad ideas and bad philosophies, misuse of technology and all that. But yeah, part of it.
I read
go ahead.
I don't know. You finish your thought. Sorry.
Part of it is like the education thing and questioning, like if people would on many issues ask questions instead of try to tell someone or something what they're like. Don't tell a snake or a coyote what they're like. Ask and see. or you see that on Facebook a lot. People accuse someone else of being something. Well, why don't you just shut up and ask? It's like, that's a responsible, honest thing to do. It'd be better for you and the other person. If we want to know what's true and deal with people respectfully, we should be asking them what their opinion is, what they think, not trying to tell them.
Exactly.
And then, as you say, learn a little bit from failure. I like your quote you said last time. I use this in all my classes now. I always tell it to my students or post it in the class notes. You said, I think your dad said, your job is not to believe me. Your job is to prove me right or wrong. That's great. I saved that and I use that a lot.
It is very true.
Or like I like to tell my kids,
very true.
Don't be a masochist about making a mistake. It seems to be the case with people in the culture, causes some of the problems too. Be a scientist or detective. Learn from it. Why did I make this mistake? What can we learn from it? How can we help our team, help the culture, help ourselves? But yeah, just that's another example of being angry and attacking instead of doing something with love and like loving the technique instead of, oh, we got to get to the goal. Oh yeah, we need the goal. We need things to survive. We need food and stuff. But, do it well, exercise well, build fires well.
Yeah.
Where's the love? Same thing there. It's
I read an article. So, speaking back, I mentioned earlier about, the kind of boom in popularity of, survival-based TV shows. Well, that's kind of, spurred a side, not industry, but interest in, foraging and rewilding, as you talk about. And, a lot more people than ever are getting out and foraging for a lot of their own foods. But what they're doing it the wrong way. They're essentially many species of edible plants have moved into the threatened category because people, I always tell my students, never take more than a third of a plant's leaves, never take more than a third of a plant population, because you always got to leave something behind for the more than human world. So people are going out there and, harvesting, all the mushrooms from this spot or all the, ramps, which is like a wild leek. And, some of these things have incredibly long growth cycles. And if you remove them all from an area, they're not going to come back. So, on one hand, yes, it's great that more people are getting out and doing things like foraging, but because they weren't taught how to do it in an ethical way, they are making things worse. Everything is a double-edged sword. Yeah.
It'd be nice if HOAs and schools would get into that. Every school should have a garden. HOA should get rid of their stupid rules, especially given what we're learning about ecology and human life and all this and what's going on. But people need to get more informed about biology and ecology. See that they need to. People should have natural, local plants in their front yard, their backyard. It's like people wonder about how we're going to feed themselves. Well, let it grow and then manage, do like the Native American Indians, from what I heard, is manage it so there's forests of pecan groves or fruit trees. There can be pecan trees in the backyard, lots of wild onion, other species that you can harvest and eat, or you can harvest and give away, sell at the farmer's market, whatever. It's like all this land on front yards, backyards, like it could be used better. And then people want to forage,
Oh
instead
yeah,
of going out in nature
yeah.
and
I
taking
was
it all, grow it yourself.
yeah. So I always laugh with people who crave the like perfect lawn. A lot of the quote unquote weeds they're trying to eradicate are far more nutritious than the crappily grown produce they're buying at the store. Things like dandelions and plantain and chickweed and dead nettle. Uh, and some of those, like dandelion and plantain, those are both non-native species. Um, so it's they fit in the environment, but they're also really delicious. And yeah, I never understood the idea of the like craving the perfect lawn. And then to do so, you're like dumping a bunch of chemicals on it, which runs down into the street, into the drain on your street, which runs into your local water source. Yeah.
Pollutes your water, comes back to you and your kids.
Yep.
Um, affects the ability to get fish in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The county I grew up in New Jersey, and they call New Jersey the Garden State for a reason. There's a ton of farming happens there, and it was at the forefront of a lot of technology back in the 30s and 40s. And in the county I grew up in, most of the wells are now undrinkable because of all the original herbicides and pesticides that in New Jersey was essentially a testing ground for a lot of them. And they're forever chemicals that just leached into the aquifer. So the last time I checked, the county I grew up in, it's like 30+% of the well water is undrinkable because it has super high levels of these crazy herbicides that have been banned for decades because of that very reason. And they don't call them forever chemicals for no reason.
Is it?
So yeah.
Is the percentage of proportion of contaminated wells like increasing? They got it under control, or what?
It's been a while since I checked,
Okay.
but like I know, the farm I grew up on, I haven't been there in close to 20 years. I do still have some friends that live up there, and it used to be very rural, and now it's essentially turned into suburban sprawl. A huge portion of it has a lot of forests and woodlands I used to play in as a kid are now developments, which is sad because it was really a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Northern New Jersey is incredibly beautiful, biodiverse place. And people of the city willing to drive an hour, that's kind of where I grew up. I grew up essentially about an hour and a half drive from New York City. And people are commuting, doing that, no problem. I have a friend who spends 4 hours a day commuting.
Wow.
It's
rough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
We need to get back to more nature. It's like so many health problems nowadays, chronic health problems, not just acute injury, psychological problems. If we'd have more access to nature, that would help a lot. And people already know about that, just to some extent. It needs to be developed more. What do some people do when they want to recover from PTSD or whatever? They don't go to a room with a bunch of concrete. They go on raft rides down rivers, spend a week out in the wilderness with a group of people, horseback, things like that. Need the nature, need the animals, need that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with some of the
It is
social media,
incredibly.
pardon?
Oh, I just said nature is incredibly therapeutic on so many different levels.
Hmm. I think with the social media, there's someone mentioned on Facebook recently. I think there's documented increases in suicide because of that. More people on social media, especially for guys, suicide rates up. I think. I have to see if I can find a link about that, but yeah. Um,
There's a so I have quite a few friends who are PhDs in indigenous studies, and they go all over the world and spend time with you know essentially groups of hunter-gatherer peoples who still live the way we're designed to live. And a lot of our Western maladies, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, that stuff just doesn't exist in these
mhm.
small groups, nor does depression,
Yeah.
and suicide, murder. Their work day is a fraction of the time that ours is. And
Yeah.
they spend the rest of the time building community. Yeah, it's yeah, it's shocking. The juxtaposition between it's funny. You read the news and people talk about poverty, and that people in impoverished nations, if you're only using money, how much money somebody has or how much money they make as a determination of poverty, you're not looking at the whole picture. A lot of people that we would deem to be in poverty live much better lives than we do. They're much healthier. They grow a lot of their own food. They have that intimate connection with the nature around them. And with their the other with their neighbors. Yeah, and it's misleading, a lot of these things we read and the stuff we're fed by the media, in order to perpetuate the myth that Western civilization, modern technological Western civilization is the pinnacle of the human experience, and there's nothing better than it. Buy today,
Yeah.
and it's just not true.
Yeah. There's too much good and bad being put together. You got to tease it out, look at the different
Yep.
causal factors in the culture, get what's good, get what's bad. Um, and if people knew more biology and ecology, we could make better decisions about that. Um, even on a little small thing like breathing. Most people do not even
Yep.
breathe right. They don't know how to breathe. I used to not either. But from what I've read from experts, they say 40 to 70% of Americans do not know how to breathe. Something so simple and basic as breathing, this basic life function, they can't even do
Yep.
right. I used to not. I mean, it's only because I became a fitness trainer that's required in being certified for the functional fitness stuff I do. I dug into it more.
Mhm.
So I've learned a lot just in the past few years, but I spent decades breathing wrong also. Um, then I see how it comes up. Or
Yeah.
walking. The simple, basic, everyday activity like walking. A lot of people, and I used to not either, a lot of people don't even walk
Yep.
right. These simple, basic things. Or
Oh.
because of the culture we're in, we think, oh, heart attack, cancer, it's normal.
Yeah.
We don't have the contrast to know what is normal and proper for people.
Mhm. Speaking of the walking, right? 3 weeks ago, I ran an awareness class, and in those classes, I talk a lot about movement, and I had this older woman in my group, and I taught them some more natural forms of movement, and I sent them out for a half hour just to work on it. And at the end of it, this woman comes back, and she's almost in tears, and she said, for the first time in as long as I can remember, like I'm not in pain right now.
Sweet.
You know, because of you know how you showed me how to move differently, and I've since since that class she's
Awesome.
gone and got herself some different footwear and is she said she's been without pain like she has been suffering from decades simply by just altering the way we move. The
Awesome.
type of shoes we wear. We're just not meant to walk on concrete. It's so horrible for us.
Even knowing what I do about breathing, how it's done wrong, how I'm trying to help people. Some people won't listen. You got the crazy thing. Saw a video on a TED Talk by, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Forgot her name now. I think it's Russian, but really good talk about breathing. And man, just given my contacts, man, that just damn thing brought tears to my eyes. Just how much it would help people, how she's trying, how people are doing it wrong, but awesome. And yeah, like you say, in regard to walking, even like people can look up the work of Kelly Starrett, aka the Supple Leopard. He's PhD, biomechanics, something or other like that, in CrossFit leadership. So it's not like a little thing. If someone wants to dismiss it, well, look at CrossFit, look at people doing it right, look up Kelly Starrett, major player in biomechanics and getting people to function well. Kind of like that lady, he had something similar to happen to him. He was in pain, couldn't run, but once he started going barefoot, getting good biomechanics, knowing how to run well, I don't remember what he said, but he went out and did like a 50K eventually after some training or something. Now he can run pain-free. It matters.
So I encourage people to read the book "Born to Run" by Dennis McDougall. I think where he met with the Tarahumara,
great.
famed distance runners, and it's even awareness of nature is one thing, but awareness itself. Learning to recognize what's good for me, what's bad for me. Each of us is a unique being, and just because something works for you, it might not work for me, and I might have to alter it slightly. And just having the awareness to recognize that and make those changes. But people will continually just like butt their head against the wall trying to make something work that's obviously not working.
So we're like, everyone's the same but different, as people say. Or we're all the same in principle, but that's a generalization. We got to get the specific measurements or details about how that principle works for us.
It's there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but as I said, I do have hope. I'm starting to see some things that are giving me more and more hope. Occasionally I'll see something that knocks me back down, but I will continue to the day I die, trying to steer people in a different direction than they're being led to believe, which is the right direction. We need to start working together, not only together with each other, but together with the other beings that we share this spaceship Earth with.
And you need to, for your own sanity and well-being, focus on that. Sometimes we'll be sad or we'll be angry, and we should, but put it in context. Don't let it control you or ruin your life. Get outdoors in nature. you start feeling angry about something because there's trash, deliberately, yeah, be angry, pick it up, but deliberately put oneself in a good state. Focus on being positive and just absorbing the negative, so to speak. I mean, sometimes I got to do that. Like everyone, every single person has things they dislike, tough things going on in life. You think about, you get angry or something sometime and train yourself to go all kind of zen. Feel the pain, but absorb it, let it be part of you. The more bigger, more important thing, the more thing that should be stronger is the joy, the happiness, connection to life. We shouldn't waste this precious life being angry all the time. I mean, how much is it really worth it? If we're outdoors, we can enjoy the beauty, and we should. We should not be wasting our time being angry, destroying the time we have out there where we should be happy. And then people will notice it.
I tell people, when you go out into nature, we've all got stuff we're struggling with. Leave those issues at your car, at your back door. They'll be waiting there for you to get back. Don't worry. But when you go out in nature, just be in the moment. Live in the now. Worry about that stuff later on. And if you do that, it oftentimes you will get answers to the questions you're struggling with, or the issues you're struggling with by going into those situations with an empty cup. A lot of times that answer, where the solution will pop into your head. That's why two of the most powerful tools are just sitting in nature. And then the second one is, just wandering through nature without time, destination, or expectation, just allowing, nature to guide the experience. You come to a fork in the trail, just whatever the first direction, left or right, take that, and you'll find some really magic, wonderful, beautiful things that way. And definitely pick up trash if you see it in the woods. That's a huge problem out here in Oregon. I'm constantly dealing with people. Somebody dumped a giant RV across the street from one of our properties a couple weeks ago, and it keeps getting trashed, and people are stripping parts off it. Or you go to wilderness areas and people go camping and then leave everything behind, or, burn their tent, leave all their trash. And I actually just wrote an article that'll be up on Anchored Outdoors soon. How people can call themselves outdoorsmen or outdoors women or outdoors people, and then leave this trash and gross stuff behind. It just does not compute in my brain. And then I'm always asking, anytime I'm out in nature, as somebody who teaches skills that require raw natural materials, before I remove anything from the landscape, I ask, by removing this sapling, this animal bone, this rock, what am I leaving behind for those that are going to come after me? What effect is that going to have? And, I try to remove things that by me removing them will make the area a better place, as opposed to, the opposite, just taking and taking and taking. I always try to use things like invasive species for raw materials if possible, or if I need a sapling, I'll go and cut one from an area where there's a whole bunch of saplings all fighting for the same space. And by removing one, you're, making the rest of them, giving them that much more of a chance to actually make it. So it's, there's a lot of work to be done, but I do have faith that, there are people out there like us and those of you listening that, hear that voice out there on the wind and want to follow it and want to be the best human animal they can be, and not just another member of the taker society. just taking without asking, and shackling future generations with everything from financial debt to environmental destruction. It's sad, but as I said, I'm forever the optimist.
Yeah, got to be a example, show someone that it can be done. And then there's a old saying, I think from a Jewish philosopher, I forgot the guy's name right now. Something the elder, come to me later, but I'll put it in the show notes if I remember. But if not me, who? If not now, when?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
But, so
exactly. Like you pick up that piece of trash in the woods. And one thing I've done experiments where I've purposely put a piece of trash in the woods and watch it attract other trash. It really does.
Wow.
Because if people see a piece of trash, they're much more likely to just toss. So it's,
interesting.
By simply just removing it when you see it, you can have a really profound effect. You can, yeah.
And then instead of wasting time being mad at someone who did it, maybe temporarily, but pick it up and focus on the good you did, how the environment's clean. It'll be beautiful for other people, beautiful for you next time. It's good for the animals and plants. Think of the good you did. But
yep, for sure.
So what? I think you got to go pretty
Stewardship.
Yeah. Any last words?
Yeah, I've got another.
You got for folks?
No, I just want to say, thank you all for your time. If you want to check out some of the stuff I'm doing, you can visit my website. It's www.tombrown3.com. It's a site that's got everything from my photography to my class schedule to books I recommend to outdoor gear I recommend to podcast interviews and links to articles I write for Anchored Outdoors. I also just finished recording my master class on making it through the first 72 hours of a wilderness survival situation. So hopefully that'll be edited up within the next month or so. So I'm really just trying to get these messages out there. So yeah, stop on by my website, sign up for my newsletter. I'm constantly updating the site, updating my blog, providing links to, valuable information to, help us be the ideal people that we can be, help us to be the best that we can be. Because when we do make that change and that sparkle comes back to our eyes, people around us will see that and then they will want that for themselves,
Sure.
And it's a chain reaction. And eventually we'll reach a critical mass where, we can then flip the paradigm. But until then, we just got to keep, being warriors for the light, cleaning up messes when you find them, even if they're not your own, be good stewards of each other, of the more than human world. And you'll lead a much more wealthy, happy life. Wealth and success have nothing to do with money. I know a lot of really wealthy people, and they are the most miserable people on the planet usually. Find your groove and get in it, and be the most ideal person you can be. And that's the best advice I can offer you.
Make the world beautiful and be someone who does that.
For sure.
As you say, be a good human animal.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, be a good human animal.
So much more to say.
Hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, I was about to say, so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm happy to do another one. So
Sweet.
I'll reach out.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yep.